What is good stuff, family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and break down some very important levels. I'm also going to talk about whether or not Tesla is likely going to continue falling or not, and what's going on with the news affecting the stock as well. Before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 2 weeks, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about Tesla. How are things looking? So, in my earlier videos, I was talking about how there could be a potential sell-off for Tesla, and this was despite the fact that so many people were looking at the Highland and saying it's going to explode, it's going to like 280, 275, and beyond. I wasn't too sure about that because I saw this triple bearish divergence forming on it. You can see this on the MACD and also on the RSI. But that alone is not sufficient because these divergences don't always play out. Another thing that I was thinking about was, how the whole market could perform in response to this event, or even like the other pieces of data coming out. Because like on SPY, for example, I was expecting it to gap up and potentially slow down after the unemployment data came out. I was thinking that, looking at the technicals, we got this like aggressive sell off at the end of the day on Thursday. And when the market sells off very, very hard to end the day, we tend to see the market kind of like rebound the next day because Apple stock has not been like dropping very hard. Apple is one of the stocks that's holding the market up, at least for the time being. But Apple is also developing a bearish divergence just like Tesla. I think Apple is going to see a correction very soon. But with Apple like performing this way, kind of like being, very sideways, not really pumping as hard, Apple is starting to show signs that it's getting very exhausted at these higher levels. It could push up a little bit more to fill its gap at the very like low 190s before it starts to sink a little bit. I think it's due for a bit of a pullback as it's been very, very overbought for quite some time. And then if you look at the RSI, I mean, anytime it's at this high level, it tends to cool off just a bit. Even if it's just like a 5 point drop or like a 6 point drop, that's completely normal. But we have to first wait and see that happen before we could turn like even more bearish. But with all this stuff going on, especially when you look at like the MACD on the 4 hour time frame, same thing on SPY on the 4 hour time frame is turning a little bit more bearish. SPY is starting to slow down more than Apple, so this is like another bearish signal. I don't think we're gonna like tank immediately or like super super hard just to start us off, but it's going to be dictated by all these different stocks. But because I was calling out SPY potentially like calling, I'm sorry, like gapping up and then slowing down. Same thing with the QQQ. I was anticipating the QQQ would slow down too. And that's what ended up happening. If you look at the MACDs turning more bearish, we're losing momentum. We got a big high volume sell off just to start us off. That's like a really, really bearish signal. We could get a little bounce thanks to Apple. It might help the market bounce a little bit before this thing continues lower. But we were expecting the QQQ to start selling off because of how tech was looking, because of Nvidia especially. So with all of these things, like when you're considering all these different stocks from Nvidia and beyond, uh, I was just thinking that this is going to likely contribute to Tesla selling off, and then we had the bearish signals developing, and then I was also thinking that either there could be some bad news coming for Tesla, or there could be like a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event going on for it. That sort of thing could have also been happening with all this news. So with all this news coming out, a lot of people were confused, kind of like tricked. They were thinking that because there's the new Highland, basically the new variant of the Model 3. People expected this to cause Tesla to explode, but you have to remember Tesla was already pumping approaching the event as if they already knew that this was going to come out, right? And there's that saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. That could have been something, and that's kind of like what I was thinking, at least back then. So I was very cautious looking at the technicals forming the bearish divergence and seeing how overbought Tesla was. And that's why I was talking about how there might be a sell off. And there was also news coming out about how Tesla cut its prices. That's also another, kind of bearish catalyst because many investors are concerned about their margins. They were talking about how their margins are way too tight. And Tesla just announced that they're going to be cutting their prices by about like 15 to 19%, depending on the model. And that is not good news for any of these cars. So with that happening, one of the biggest issues with them doing this would be the fact that there's this big backlog in their orders, and they're trying to, cool off on the backlog as they're trying to update their new models, especially with production of the new Model 3. Now, the problem I'm seeing is that there's a demand issue for Tesla right now. I know it's kind of like the elephant in the room that a lot of people are not talking about, but there is a demand issue, at least temporarily. Now, it's not going to last forever. Eventually, demand is going to go up. I believe for the fourth quarter, it should go back up, especially for next year when the Cybertruck is out, and also like for Q4 when the Cybertruck is out too. But I'm talking about right now in the current time, Tesla has to resort to cutting prices again because they're getting this big backlog of their inventories, and they need to start getting rid of those cars as fast as possible as they're continuing to just backlog over and over again. So this was more bearish news. Technically, they're resorting to cutting prices again. This is what they have to do when there needs to be a shift in supply and demand. And it's not really their fault. I mean, the macroeconomic factors affecting this economy are not entirely their fault or their fault whatsoever. And things like this happen to companies. So this is part of why Tesla ended up selling off. So could this have been like a somewhat kind of resembling a buy the rumor, sell the news event? There's a possibility of that, but I don't think that's the main thing. I would say that maybe the price cuts played just as big of a role, if not a bigger role. And then we had bearish technicals developing simultaneously. And then, considering what Apple was looking like, Apple didn't look like it was going to pump insanely hard. SPY did not look that way, in my opinion, either. All of these things together, I kind of like factored all of these in and came to the conclusion that Tesla would likely get some kind of sell off either for like Friday or maybe even like early next week, one of those two dates. And I told you to watch like 255. If that broke, we're going to see this thing come all the way down to 250 or lower, very close to this 200 EMA. It ended up going even lower than that, even below like 245, which is pretty significant. So how on earth is Tesla looking now? That's the question that a lot of people are asking me. And honestly, guys, it looks pretty bearish still. It's going to get a rebound first. It's going to try to rebound a little bit since it's very, very oversold. It's going to try to rebound just a little bit and make it another rejection. And then you're going to be watching how Apple ends up performing. If Apple starts sinking the market, we could see Tesla start sinking down to these imbalances down here. Because one thing that's not good about it is the fact that it broke below this support right here, this 244.5 level. I was talking about Tesla holding this. This was a key for Tesla. We broke below it, but we managed to bounce back and try to close very close to it. Not looking good whatsoever, in my opinion. So we could get a rebound for Tuesday. And I'm saying Tuesday because the market's going to be closed on Monday. We have a 3-day holiday thanks to Labor Day. So look for a potential rebound that's going to be coming. Watch the 200 EMA as major resistance. It's going to be very close to like 248 to 250. Also 247.5 is going to be resistance. And then like we have 245.9. Lots of resistance is coming. I'm thinking that it's going to make an attempt to rebound, maybe chop around for a little bit of time. It could even trade sideways for a day or so. But if we continue to break down, which I think we will, Tesla has this imbalance down here, all the way down to about 237. But we have historical chop between 238 and 240. I think this zone could be visited very, very soon. So I don't think it's done just yet. This was very aggressive selling that we saw. What else was suspicious that I considered was the fact that we saw an increase in the short interest of Tesla. We saw like 38 million more Tesla shares being shorted than usual. So it's almost as if they planned all of this out. This is all just a game in their eyes. This was a little suspicious too. This like wick that formed at the very end of the day on Thursday. They formed this wick so they could start shorting Tesla at these higher levels. And this was like the last little pump before the sell-off was about to start. It was all part of their game. And they basically did the same thing right here too. We started like selling off a little bit, then we got one last little wick, and that was it. The last chance for the bears to step in, start shorting at these higher levels before they smacked it down and they slammed it very, very hard. So there was more shorting going on in Tesla. These bears have a tendency of not being very, very merciful on the stock, and there could be more downside. The trend is still looking very weak. Very, very weak day for Friday. Look for a little rebound and watch and see if it continues to break down, which it probably will. It may take a little longer for it to break down like much lower. It could take like a couple of days to really get to these lower levels because of Apple taking its time. And ultimately, there could be more downsides still coming. Unfortunately, we're going to be watching these important chop zones. Watch this 240 level very carefully. However, what is good about Tesla is I'm not really expecting it to sell off like insanely hard all the way down to like 220, 230 just yet. I have to see how it holds around 238 first. Do we manage to see a lot of buyers stepping in? We should see buyers around this zone right here. So we're going to be watching that first. Do we get the buyers? Because if we break below like 238 and these lower levels, we have this historical support all the way down at like 234. If it breaks that, then we could start to see Tesla sell off more. But for now, we want to watch supports and see how we react to these supports firsthand. All right, so I hope this is as clear as possible. The trend looks more bearish. Look for a little rebound first before it continues lower likely. And we're going to be watching to see how it ends up performing. Could there be like a head and shoulders like pattern that's developing? Because if we start selling off immediately, we could be visiting this area first, then get the balance and start selling off more. That's like another bearish possibility, but we need a very, very bad piece of news again on Tuesday or even over the weekend for that to happen. The really bearish case, right? So those are like the two more probable outcomes. I still want to see a bounce first from a technical standpoint, since it's very oversold. But just be open minded and just know that the trend is still looking more bearish, and eventually there could be more downside coming. And then I will talk more about what's going to happen likely later on in another video. But for now, just know this about Tesla. This was not like a big surprise to me. I was a little surprised by how low it went, though. I wasn't expecting to go like this low, but I was expecting it to drop nonetheless. And once again, I mean, just remain calm, cool, and collected, guys, because it's not the end of the world. I know there are people saying Tesla's going to 180, Tesla's going to 150, it's going to $99, and that's just absolutely ridiculous. It hasn't even broken below 200 or even like 220. You shouldn't even be talking about like very low levels like that. But here's the thing. Later on, okay, I was talking about this in my videos in the past. The market's going to get a very nice bull run. The market's going to run most likely very hard in November. That's what tends to happen, as long as there isn't some like a major, major historical negative catalyst, some kind of like bad event. So Tesla is going to rebound in the future. Is it going to hit these lower levels? Sure, it still could, but eventually it's going to rebound towards the end of the year when the Cybertruck is out, when their sales go up. It's going to be pushing back to fill its gaps. I think before this year ends, by the way, even if Tesla maintains these low levels for an extended period of time, let me just say that yes, we can hit 230, we can hit the 238 level, sure. But before the year ends, near the end of the year by November or so, November to December, I think Tesla will rebound and fill this gap up to 289 to 300. It's going to hit that zone before the year ends, and I think Tesla's going to get a very strong rebound to end the year. So it's not the end of the world. The Cybertruck is going to help this thing out. Don't worry, guys. It's not the end of the world whatsoever. Just be very, very prepared, and we want to just be as cautious as possible. All right. Thank you for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular day. Enjoy the weekend. We have a long weekend coming, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you, and peace out.